The thermometer is rising and our viral videos are hot. Hey friends, it's Executive Director Kathleen Thompson. We're raising $60,000 to get to Election Day and we could use your help. The months leading up to an election are often the most difficult time for nonprofits to raise, as donors naturally focus on campaigns. We're in the peak of dry summer giving season and need patrons of Progress to support the real free press. Your gift funds the peerless work like our THCBN video that hit 1 million views in 24 hours. Become a sustaining member or increase your gift before the 31st. When you join, you'll get exclusive perks for Progress. Check out the link in show notes to buy back your media today.
I am Charles Zeller. I am retired from the computer industry. I'm on the board of Progress Texas. I am a supporter because they're great communicators, and I believe clocks keep rotating clockwise. Progress is inevitable, and we might as well work to make progress work. I like Progress Texas because I think government involvement is essential in a rapidly changing, increasingly complex, crowded, interconnected world.
Well said, Charles. It's Wednesday, August 19, 2026, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch, rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier, and we can't do what we do without your support. Thanks to John Scott, Glenda Rogers, and Shannon Walton for their ongoing sustaining partnership. Here at Progress Texas, we try to look beyond the headlines. At the top today is a story with plenty to discuss beyond the headlines. As Benjamin Wormand at the Houston Chronicle puts it, quote, Minnesota sues to force Greg Abbott to extradite ICE agent accused in Minneapolis shooting, unquote. Perhaps a more appropriate take might be, quote, Governor Greg Abbott has been sheltering a wanted, indicted rogue federal agent for almost 3 months, unquote. News to me for sure, and close to zero news coverage on this I can find prior to yesterday. The state of Minnesota has filed a federal lawsuit against Governor Greg Abbott to release into their custody 52-year-old ICE agent Christian Castro, who was arrested by the Texas Rangers on May 29th at a residence in Harlingen and has been locked up in the Cameron County Jail since then. His arrest in Texas was the result of an investigation by Minnesota authorities into a January 14th incident in which Castro allegedly fired his gun through the door of a Minneapolis duplex, wounding a resident in the leg, and then falsely claimed he was attacked with a shovel and a broom, an account contradicted by video evidence. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz formally submitted an extradition request on June 2nd. Governor Abbott has routinely signed off on similar requests by other governors in fewer than 30 days. But this time, Abbott's playing politics on behalf of Donald Trump, stating he will ignore Minnesota's request until that state's officials address unrelated federal program fraud claims connected to pandemic-era child welfare scandals, themselves thick with anti-Somali racism, a situation that has no direct connection to Texas or to this ICE agent. Governor Greg Abbott has leveraged a standard interstate legal duty into a petty partisan power play, complete with risks to the case itself. Alex Gwynn at the Texas Tribune, under a similar headline, notes that Texas law places a 90-day limit on holding fugitives awaiting extradition. Should Governor Abbott fail or refuse to process the warrant by Thursday, August 27th, 1 week from tomorrow, an ICE agent under indictment for 4 counts of felony assault and false reporting could walk free from the Cameron County Jail and have a chance to flee prosecution altogether. That jail is less than a mile from the border with Mexico. The headlines absolutely miss the mark today. Governor Greg Abbott and the state of Texas are harboring a wanted violent fugitive to score political points with the most racist wing of their own base, and in doing so, are risking that fugitive's escape from justice altogether. We'll check back in on this one. More resistance to Republican political hostage-taking comes out of Houston. April Towery at the Houston Press writes on a federal lawsuit Harris County has joined against the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA, challenging a mandate that places conditions on federal public safety grants on unrelated local election policy changes. Advocacy orgs, including the Public Rights Project and Protect Democracy, are in on this legal action as well, arguing that the withholding of 20% of nationwide Homeland Security grant program funds by Trump's DHS violates the Constitution by encroaching on Congress's spending powers as well as local authority over election administration. The feds want Harris County to switch to hand-marked paper ballots, implement 5% manual audits, and screen voter registration lists using the famously flawed federal SAVE database, none of which Harris County wants or should be compelled to do. Those local officials argue that holding anti-terror Counterterrorism and Emergency Preparedness Funding hostage over unproven, unwieldy, and useless voting restrictions both threatens public safety infrastructure and imposes costly, unfunded burdens on county election administration. We could say this every day and frequently do. All of this ham-fisted goofball little Napoleon theater is happening just as the Republican regime should be doing their best to make friends as the countdown to the November 3rd midterm election reaches 76 days. By one county-level candidate's navigation of all of this, that's dawning on a lot of the folks that'll be on your ballot this fall. Another one here from April Towery at the Houston Press, who says that in a recent talk with a crowd of Hispanic voters in East Houston, including members of Greater Houston's LULAC, Republican Harris County Judge candidate Orlando Sanchez explicitly asked his audience to disregard the R next to his name on the ballot, a clear maneuver to distance his personal brand from the increasingly toxic National Republican brand. Sanchez went on to acknowledge the building backlash against conservative candidates and messaging in Latino-majority precincts and tried to assert his own personal independence from the national slogans and political extremes that the GOP has aligned itself with. Up against Democratic nominee and Progress Texas endorsee Letitia Plummer, who has no such difficulties, Sanchez appeared at this public function to have become acutely conscious of the bad juju dripping from the Republican label lately, particularly in Houston in the wake of the fatal ICE shooting of Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, which happened near the venue where this talk took place. Let's tackle that question more specifically, considering the litany of high-profile issues that hinge on partisan politics at this very moment. Can any Republican be trusted not to fall in line with Donald Trump and the darker impulses of the extreme right that have taken over the GOP? There's a wave of op-eds and articles in the news today on some of those issues. In just the last 24 hours, the New York Times highlights for the world the recent conspicuous rise of Islamophobia in Texas. NPR reports on a similar increase in hostility against Asian Texans. Christianity Today, which was founded by Billy Graham, is out with a piece condemning the overreach of Texas officials in cramming Christian dogma into our public schools. The editorial board at the Houston Chronicle argues that just legalizing, regulating, and taxing THC would be a lot easier than the complicated and stupid system that Dan Patrick has shoved upon us. The editorial board at the Dallas Morning News talks about how it's not data centers that are the problem, it's the lack of reasonable restraint placed upon their developers by the Republican regime that has put our water, land, energy, and peace and quiet at risk. And of course, there's the mess in the Big Bend. Republicans have been backtracking and grandstanding and promising major reversals on a lot of this stuff, but it's all what Stephanie Coithon at the San Antonio Current calls faux pas. If any of those issues are important to you, and God, we sure hope they are, voting for a Republican at this point is a guarantee that none of those issues will be corrected after November. Texas has been run by Republicans for 30 years. Governor Greg Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and the vast majority of the Texas legislature who are entrenched in permanent power via gerrymandering see this election as a momentary annoyance. They will say anything to get past it and resume their comfy grip on power and grift come November 4th. If any of those aforementioned issues, and let's not leave out our shameful state of healthcare and public education, and let's sure not leave out an economy that only really works for the wealthiest Texans, there has never been a moment that more urgently cries out for an immediate, dramatic change in our leadership. A vote for any Republican at this point is a vote to continue this disgraceful and corrupt slide into ruin. We need new leaders with a new vision, who themselves, by the way, will be held to account to bring about the change that Texas so desperately needs. This election year, you can support the real free press by investing in pro-democracy, pro-justice, progressive storytelling delivered by Texans for Texans. Join Progress Texas this summer ahead of the midterms and become a monthly donor today, or increase your giving during our summer sustaining donor drive. With your partnership, we can reach more independents, progressives, and young voters, all of whom must be mobilized to win elections this fall. And we'll thank you with Perks for Progress, your choice from an exclusive Resist coffee mug, a sweet Progress Texas summer koozie, and a progressive button pack. Plus, you'll get a shout out here on the Daily Dispatch. See the link in the show notes or hit ProgressTexas.org to join the family during our summer sustaining donor drive. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Wednesday, August 19th, 2026. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. Learn more about what we do and how you can get involved at ProgressTexas.org. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day. We'll see you again here tomorrow morning.